So we go and we steal the wife's pressure cooker, okay? And we go and we drill into the lid and we put two gauges on. The one is a temp and the other one is a pressure. Okay? Right. And we take this pressure cooker and we half fill it up with water. Okay. Right. Now, before we do anything, what is the temperature gauge going to read? What temperature are we going to get?
You're going to get the water temperature or the hot state.
Ambient, eh?
Yeah, ambient.
Okay, and what pressure are we going to get here?
Zero.
Zero what?
Zero pressure. PSI. Zero pressure.
Refrigeration, we work almost exclusively in PSI, especially for your domestic lecture.
Okay.
When you hit day 2 of your commercial lecture, then you will realize that you can actually work in anything you want. Okay? But for domestic, work in what we call imperial. Okay, imperial is PSI, and it's horsepower, and it's BTU, and it's all that stuff.
Okay.
Okay. The reason we do it is because South Africa is a metric country. We know that. But America is basically an imperial country. They do all their calculations. They put the oak on the moon working in imperial. Okay.
Yes.
All the stuff for refrigeration is intended for the American market, not for our market. We're way too small in terms of global economy. So all the refrigeration is in imperial. It is changing, I agree with you, and you start seeing the change more and more in things like air conditioning. But it hasn't changed in domestic much, not much.
Okay.
Okay, when you order a compressor based on horsepower. When we talk in pressure, until you do commercial, you'll talk in PSI. BTU, that's air conditioning. What's that? The problem with refrigeration is if you talk in kilowatts, okay, for the layman or the uninitiated, a kilowatt is a measure of electrical power. But you can also have a kilowatt measurement of refrigeration.
Okay.
You see, so it gets a bit buggered up. So the one thinks he's talking kilowatts, and he's only talking this kilowatt and not that kilowatt and all the rest. So for this course, it's a whole lot easier to stay with imperial.
Yeah.
Okay, so forget about PSI, all of that, not that we don't know about it, but we don't really use it, especially for domestic. Okay, so right. So we're going to read Nord PSI and we're going to read ambient here, let's call it 20, whatever the case is. Okay. Right, now we're going to take and we're going to put energy into this. So let's draw a graph here. Okay, here is ambient. And this is temp. Have you done any thermodynamic lectures, any ends or something like a technical school?
No.
Okay. In the technical schools, they will teach you about entropy and enthalpy.
Okay.
Ignore that. Let's just say we're just dealing with energy. Okay. We don't need to go there.
Okay.
Okay, if it were, I've lectured a couple of guys where they've been like engineers, whatever, and then they were saying, no, but what's the energy entropy? You don't need to go there.
Okay.
This is a lecture to get you to where you are. Okay, so this one, let's call it energy, time, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so here we start off at ambient. Okay, that water there. When we start putting energy in,
Yes.
what happens to that water?
Water starts to get warmer
So this gauge is going to rise.
and
And this gauge?
The PSI will also start rising. No, not yet, no.
Not yet.
Not yet, no.
Excellent. So, let me see, this water temperature is going to rise, we agree?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does it just rise all the time? Or what?
No, it'll be, once again, hits boiling point, it'll start.
Boiling point. Alright. Okay, so when we hit boiling point, it is going to what?
It's gonna start steam, the steam will start.
Steam. Okay, firstly, let's get one thing. What temperature is boiling point?
It's 110.
Okay, it's actually 100 degrees. But I need to warn you in the lecture. Shit, I lie a lot there. Okay, so 100 degrees. But I lie a lot. Okay? Right. Now we hit 100 degrees. And it starts boiling here. Okay, but we haven't taken the temperature, the heat away. So what happens here? Does it carry on heating up?
No, the boiling point will stay the same.
Stays at boiling point.
Yes.
Okay, so if it stays at boiling point, it does this, hey?
Yes.
Okay, and what happens when it stays at boiling point? What happens to the water?
The water.
Remember now we're in the steam pot that we start from the wife, eh?
Okay.
Okay, remember now also that your diet is here at 100 degrees. Okay, so what happens to the water here?
Now it starts boiling and giving off steam.
Giving off steam. So the water becomes less and less and less.
Yeah, it becomes less.
And more steam.
Yeah, the steam can't escape. So
Eh?
the steam can't escape, so it's,
Okay, what happens to the pressure?
the pressure will start going up.
You know that good old Afrikaans saying? Yanya. You know that one?
Yes.
Yanya. Pressure stays where it is.
Yeah?
Pressure stays where it is.
Does it stay?
Yeah. Why should it go?
Because there's pressure building up inside.
Okay. Again, one of these that I lie a lot. Okay. But the pressure stays where it is. When we come to commercial, we'll correct that lie.
Okay.
Okay. But I don't need you thinking that pressure is going to rise now.
Okay.
Okay. So the pressure stays more or less where it is.
Okay.
Right. So, as we're putting in energy, so we're changing the state from liquid to gas.
Yes.
Okay. What happens at this point here? This point here where there's no more liquid. Okay, we're putting in energy. There's no more liquid.
Yes.
Okay. The temperature can't come down. The temperature can only rise.
So it'll rise more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because something's going to happen to that energy. Okay, and now when it rises, so your pressure will rise.
Okay, that's with no water in it.
That's with no water.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get this right. We started off with water. Okay, we heat it up to boiling point. We then boil the water away until there's no more water. We carry on putting in energy. Okay, and then we hit a state where the pressure and the temperature rose. There. Okay, now just to get a little bit technical, this is what we call wet steam. And this is what we call dry steam. Okay, now there's another name for dry steam. Maybe you've heard of it. Have you heard of it?
No.
Okay, now let's get the basics right here. Superheated steam. Okay, superheated steam was discovered in the 18th century, 17th century, somewhere there, and they got their first cars to work on actual superheated steam, and then they got the trains to work on superheated steam, and now all our power plants, even the nuclear power plants, all work on superheated steam. Okay, if you think about it, this concept here is about 300 years old, if not more. Okay, it's very old. Okay, the heating up the water to dry steam, superheated steam. Okay, there used to be a train here before they buggered up the train lines. Whatever, there used to be a train here going from Joburg to Magaliesburg, steam train.
Yes.
Okay, my father used to work at a steam train up in Denver. Okay, now what they did is they did exactly this. They shoveled the coal into the furnace. Okay, they heated up the water, they boiled the water away, and here they got superheated steam. That superheated steam went on a little control valve that took the superheated steam and toggled it this way, and then toggled it that way. They toggled it this way, toggled it. And what it did is this piston on the wheel. Okay, it toggled it and it pushed it this way and it pushed it forward. Then it toggled it and it pushed it, backwards. And I mean, that energy is enough to dry a whole train. Because now there's that superheated steam coming in at a pressure and it pushes that cylinder back. Okay, and then it discharges. Okay, and then it comes from the other side and pushes the cylinder forward. Just enough to drag a train forward. I mean, that is what the Industrial Revolution was built on, if you follow what I'm saying.
Yes.
Okay, now, a couple of things about superheated steam. There is a shitload of energy in the superheated steam. A hell of a lot. I mean, think about it. You start from here, and you put it in there, you put it in there, you put it in there, you here. That's a lot of energy. Okay? That is dangerous. That is deadly. It is not so deadly for domestic refrigeration. But in terms of commercial, it can destroy a compressor. I mean, think about it. I mean, when these trains in those days started to derail, I mean, you have the train training at a speed and they say, oh, there's a problem up there. Jump the train. Take your chances of breaking a leg or back or whatever, and be in the caboose when this thing falls. Because when that superheated steam starts going off, it just shook and you're cooked. That amount of energy we're talking about. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Okay. We're talking about superheated steam that can destroy refrigeration. Now, where do I come on the concept of refrigeration? I thought we were talking about water. Okay. Water is a refrigerant. Okay. That's why we sweat. Water is a refrigerant. Okay. In the old days, not even in the old days, on the farms, can I clean the water a little bit?
Yes, sir.
You must stop me if I'm cleaning too quickly, eh? No, you and I just got to put knowledge into your head, and I don't need to give it there and take it away before you quote it.
No, got it.
Okay, so I can clean the water.
Yes, sir.
Okay, in the old days, they used to have this type of coal box where they had straw in here. Okay, and there's a lid on it. Okay, it's domestic. Okay, that takes me a week to bring you up to speed on domestic refrigeration. Okay, here is our domestic unit. This is what is on any household fridge. This is your compressor. Okay, we're going to explain, we're going to teach you about the compressor. This is the unit that goes on the back of the fridge. We call this a condenser. Okay, we will go through it. This is the inside cold plate. What we call, the correct name is evaporator. It's called a cold plate. It's the item that gets cold inside, generates heat. We'll be going through this. The second week is going to be commercial. Okay, here is a commercial unit. Okay, these commercial units is what you see in all the supermarkets, in all the factories, the bigger units. It's fridges, the freezers, the wall freezers, all of that. That is all commercial refrigeration. Similar system, but different concepts. Okay, here's the compressor. This one is a very, very old compressor, but these used to be the king of the compressors in the day. Okay, here again is the condenser. Okay, here we have a receiver tank. Here's the dryer, and over here is the evaporator. It's normally got a fan here that will draw your cold away. Here we teach you how to pump down, how to gas up, how to repair, how not to waste gas, how to do things properly. All the students want to do air conditioning. That being said, air conditioning module is right at the end of the commercial. And it's just an entertaining talk because you know already what it is. Just telling you the ins and outs and the bewares and all the rest of it. Once you've done the commercial, you can do virtually anything. Back to our courses. Refrigeration school. The first week, domestic. Second week, commercial. You can do the domestic course without doing the commercial. You can actually make a good living doing domestic fridges. You can make a good income any which way you want doing domestic fridges. But either one of these courses, you need the tools, etc. to do it. We prefer that you bring your own tools. Okay? It makes no sense to do a refrigeration school training course and not have the tools and not have the ability to go out and start earning money, start fixing fridges. If you can't afford it, because believe me, tools are expensive. Okay? If you can't afford it, we will hire you tools out. If you want to come on the course and get tools later, also not a problem. You can get them hired out to you.